Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Cyber Coast to Coast. I am one of your co-hosts, Craig Schober, and I'm coming at you from Central America, Tamarindo's West Coast, um, in Costa Rica. Hey Scott, Scott's coming at you from the East Coast. How you doing there, Scott?
Good, good. It's a nice day here. We got sunny and probably about 80 degrees in beautiful Metuchen, New Jersey here. We're right outside of New York City at Berkeley headquarters. How's the weather there by you, Craig?
I guess it's mild. I mean, I'm sure you're experiencing more mild because you're starting to move into fall there slowly.
Yeah.
We really just have two seasons here, hot and hotter. So, we're kind of in the hot season, but it's going to get hotter in a few months once the rainy season slows down here. So,
Yeah.
always looking forward to that. Not really. Um, so we got three good stories today lined up for you. Give you a quick rundown, just so you kind of get the idea. First one is a Jaguar Land Rover. I've never driven one of those, but they're very popular vehicles. Apparently, they were hit by a scattered spider attack. We'll get more into that. Second one is a malware story, Gayfemboy, DDoS attacks, kind of coming off the heels of the Mirai story that we've covered a few years back, botnet zombies and all that kind of stuff. Third story is a ransomware story dealing with Swedish healthcare. So, a serious one, deadly one. Um, we'll get more details on that. But first, we can get right into the Jaguar Land Rover one. Um, let's see here. We got uh, shut down their IT systems to contain the incident. It doesn't look like uh, too much damage was done. There's this attack called the Scattered Spider, Shiny Hunters, and Lapsus. I heard of the Lapsus one. Um,
Yeah, they've
but
been around a
the
couple years, and I think the scattered spider, a couple different breaches recently they were attributed to. So I've been hearing them in the news a bit more. And I know I covered this story also recently on cybercrime radio. Talked a little bit about this attack Jaguar Land Rover.
Yeah, and as I was pulling up the story and looking at it, I realized we actually have a show coming up that deals sort of tangentially with this issue. It's about vehicle attacks. It's in September 21st to 26th. It's the IAATI 2025 show, and that's about combating vehicle crimes and the training and the network and law enforcement that goes into that. And you're going to actually be speaking there, if I'm correct, Scott. Do you have any thoughts on that? What kind of presentation are you thinking?
Oh yeah, actually, I am speaking on it, and I'm going to be talking. This is the site here in case anyone's taking a peek at this, not just listening to us. And this is really all about combating vehicle crime, which has been a pretty big problem. A couple months ago, we were actually contacted by one of our customers, and they used our Blue Sleuth Pro, and I think they also have a Blue Sleuth Lite, but they used it specifically for hunting down tags because what they're finding is a correlation between stolen vehicles, especially high-end stolen vehicles, uh, tied to tags. They want to track them, and they're putting them into containers at the ports. So we went up against another couple companies that have Bluetooth type solutions for finding and locating tags. And we actually came out on top, we were told. And they had success. They had, I believe, 9 vehicles that they recovered, and they used our Blue Sleuth Pro in particular with direction finding antenna. They went up on a boom truck, and it was about 3 stacks high. If you imagine the ports, how they have those big containers. And they found the cars, they put them in like this at an angle and stack them and jam them all in there. And it was pretty impressive. But shortly thereafter, we were actually contacted by this group here, combating vehicle crimes, and they're having a show in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So I'll be going out there and speaking. But it looks like a really exciting show. You can see our company here, so we're going to exhibit as well. But some really nice nice group of people covering this sector here, and we're going to learn a lot about recovering stolen vehicles and some of the tracking methods and things that they use. So we're kind of pumped up and excited about that.
Great. Looking forward to that show.
Yeah, and I'm going to
Um,
be presenting, I should mention, sorry, September 25th at 3:15 p.m. is the time on my calendar here. I just wanted to verify that. So I'm going to be going out there a few days, and then the beginning of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, which is September 22nd, 23rd, 24th. We'll have a little tabletop there, and we'll have some representation from our company. They're demonstrating our products there, our Blue Sleuth Pro, certainly Blue Sleuth Lite, and some other tools as well.
right. Now, like you were saying, we kind of traditionally we deal more with the hardware stack, I guess you would call it,
Yeah,
the criminal um, perpetrators who are using wireless means, and we come up with tools to counter that. Our story here that we're covering isn't is a little more concerned with, I guess, the bits and the bytes. It's more of a cybersecurity breach.
mm,
Um, but they're, I guess they're two sides of the same coin.
yeah,
You could have people, using the same similar technologies or completely different technologies to achieve the same thing. And we've seen those stories in the past. I think Jeep Cherokee, that we had stories about uh, possible hacking because there were experts and maybe some white hat, maybe gray hat hackers that had managed to take control of some of the systems through its entertainment system in the Jeeps. And they were demonstrating how it's a possibility. Now, in this story, one of the things that jumped out at me was that we had these threat actors making claims, but it seems like there's still some questions. They're not totally verified, and that that kind of brings up the idea of like almost how do you know who's even responsible sometimes, whether it's a terrorist attack we see sometimes in the news, and you have a group, usually kind of a Middle East based group. They take credit for it, but they don't have their DNA, so to speak, on the attack. You can't verify it. It's almost like they're taking bragging rights for something they might not have even done. Um,
yeah. I
isn't
think that's a
that
good point. We don't even know,
strange?
and
Yeah.
I think sometimes it comes out later after the investigation. But what I always get concerned with is, doesn't that hurt a brand and the damage up front? And I mean, at first we might say, oh, well, how could it hurt a brand? This and that. Jaguar, Land Rover, both what I call higher end luxury vehicles and SUV. I did a little look earlier when reading the story over, and they produce over 400,000 vehicles a year, and that was as
Mm.
of 2024. So it's a good number of vehicles. It's by no means a Ford pickup truck or some a
Right.
Toyota Camry or something like that that has much higher volume, probably in the millions. But they're still it's a large company. They've got over 39,000 employees worldwide, a huge production, and again more niche luxury vehicles. So perhaps just hearing about that may make some customers go, "Oh, wait a minute! I heard Land Rover, or I heard Jaguar was breached. I don't want to get a car like that. What if it takes over my car? Or what if my name is part of that breach?" So it might cause a little erosion in their brand. But who knows if the threat actors are legit or not even in this, which always is a very confusing because it takes so much time for these stories to kind of unfold, and
Mhm.
it's kind of vague, I guess, what this attacker Ray said. They posted internal logs and administration level access, but they're talking on Telegram channels and stuff like that. So it's very very fishy, I think. But it sounds to me like kind of an extortion or a ransomware attack. It might result in they're looking for a quick, give me $1 million or something like that. And
Mhm.
I don't know. I think we'll probably see in the coming weeks though. But this really happened recently in July into now into August and September, and we're still not really clear on what happened.
Yeah, Scattered Spider takes the credit for it, but like you said, we're not clear on that. And I think they'll do some kind of little more forensic digging, and usually the code gives it away.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's a hacker affiliated with one of the organizations and they brag online, and that's sort of a giveaway. But again, bragging doesn't equal truth necessarily.
True. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and that kind of brings us to our next story. It reminds me of some elements of our next story. Um, and that one, let me back up a second here. By the way, the IT, sorry, mixed up here. I don't even know where did that first story come from? The Jaguar one. I can't find
That
it
was
now.
Reuters that came from.
Reuters.
Yeah.
Okay.
They usually do
Okay, I got
pretty
it.
good coverage, I think. And this next one here is sorry.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Reuters thing now. It says the problem is that I see JLR and I never equate that to, Jaguar Land Rover, but it's the headline was Britain's JLR hit by cyber incidents that disrupts production sales. And like you said, that's Reuters. This next one here is from I grabbed it from them.us. Sophisticated and in quotes, gay femboy malware is attacking multiple industries around the globe. Um, Reading through the story, the first thing I think of is how these not only are these hackers sort of starving for attention and credit and both bragging rights, but they're juvenile. They have like these weird little labels and things that they're looking in the code. They see strings that says things like twink, and of course gay femboy is like kind of an offshoot of the Mirai bot
Hmm.
network attack that we heard about years ago. Um, it's a, it's a zombie. I guess it's essentially gathering up old IoT devices, things that are older because they're unprotected. They have, poor password management. They might not require second factor authentication.
Hmm.
Things that are just still plugged in, still operational, but easier to take over. And when you
Yeah.
take over enough of these devices, thousands, hundreds of thousands even, suddenly you have an army. And I guess, like they say, they call it, when I first heard this, I thought it was funny, years ago with the Mirai bot network, it was, some people referred to it as the zombie bot network. And like they say, zombies don't die. And I guess, for all we know, some of these same devices could be from that original attack years ago, just used again and again to, exfiltrate data and, steal
Mm.
privacy and security and, breach networks in general.
Yeah. I
Uh,
think a lot of these, but if you look back at the Mariah botnet stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of them. And I think many have claimed that they're sitting there dormant, just like you're saying, and then they can be used and you can kind of, with one single command, they could reach out to hundreds of thousands of these botnets and have it do something. And it could be all kinds of things. Most of them, I think, are effectively used for DDoS attacks. They can redirect all their attention toward a particular website or URL and just flood it with junk traffic. So you can argue and say, well, they're not doing anything, that's necessarily breaking the law, but they're just overloading the servers. They can't handle it, and the website can't function as normal, which, in a sense, is it's like congestion. It's congestion to a website, and they're very effective with that. Because imagine if we had hundreds of thousands of botnets attacking our website when we're trying to have somebody purchase a product. Our website couldn't handle that type of traffic, and most websites can. Amazon and other huge online retailers are designed so they could handle tens of thousands of customers simultaneously. But the average company or small business, I don't think they could do anything there. But
right.
this story is kind of funny because, as you were saying, they kind of are playing with some humorous terms and nicknames and strange things all mixed throughout this story. And it's just kind of gives you a chuckle, if nothing else. It's a very peculiar story,
Yeah.
needless to say.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think? When does something like this step over, cyber vandalism and go into corporate, um, not espionage, but attacking a corporate structure, attacking a revenue source, something that can actually damage and cause people to lose their jobs. Or it's not they're not stealing data directly. They're not releasing that. They're not breaching it. I don't even know that there was a ransomware number associated with anything because they didn't. It doesn't seem like they had anything valuable. But what they did do is kind of digitally trespass and
Mhm.
then vandalize through, I guess, through a DDoS attack, a server enough so that it wouldn't run functionally. Is something like that, should they get a slap on the wrist or more than that?
Yeah, I think they should get more than that. And why do I say that? Because you notice the loose mention in the story that it talks about leveraging infected routers, but also crypto mining systems. And crypto mining systems, from familiar with that, is oftentimes they'll put actual code on computers and systems that will basically in the background use your processor on your computer to help solve algorithms in cryptocurrency mining. And if you do it just on one computer, it would take forever. But now if you take hundreds of thousands of computers and they're all doing a tiny bit of mining, working to produce the work, and get paid in a Bitcoin or whatever particular cryptocurrency that they're mining, it's very effective. So it's basically stealing power, stealing computing power, and leveraging other people's processors for financial gain. So indirectly, it's kind of a soft steal, I guess you could say. But what's wrong is wrong. And that's just one aspect of it here. But it's also very malicious when they're sending out DDoS attacks. And this is not isolated to like a particular state in the United States or the United States alone, but you're talking other countries. The article, I think, mentions Brazil, France, Germany, Israel, and throughout the United States. So they're having fun. These IoT devices are probably a bunch of low cost IoT security cameras that many of us put across our houses, and people leave the default password in. They're not secured, they're not updated, or not even being able to update the firmware. And hence, they could take them over and place code there, leave it dormant, and then when they want to have some fun, they basically commandeer them all and start transmitting and doing DDoS attacks and all these other terrible things with malware. So yeah, it could be very destructive. And certainly, I say to your point, it's really on the level of illegal things that they're doing. It's just got to be proven that makes it difficult to actually get through that.
Right. Right. All right. We can we can jump to the third story because now it's almost like we're going up in the scale of danger because what what we had there was, an impact on revenues, on business, and now we have, possible impacts on health. The As you know, we've covered these stories many times. The value of patient data is very high, and the security and privacy of that data is deemed very valuable. And this story comes to us from itpro.com. Ransomware attack on IT supplier disrupts hundreds of Swedish municipalities. They list here about 200 municipalities and regional governments in Sweden have disrupted by this uh, single ransomware IT attack on their IT systems.
Hmm.
One of the things that jumped to me as a little, I don't know about strange, but kind of like this is where we're at now is the dollar amount they're demanding 1.5 in Bitcoin, and that comes out to about $163,000
Yeah.
US. But they're saying it might not be a really highly organized campaign just because the it's kind of a mid-tier level because they're not asking for millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they're a smaller group, maybe slightly less organized, and maybe they're new, new at it, and I wonder if they would have asked for $500,000, if they would have asked for 5 Bitcoins, let's say, would they have been taken even more seriously? And suddenly the threat flags go up even higher, and people get more concerned, and they say, well, they must have their act together. They must be a credible threat. Let's
Mm.
just pay this ransom off right now, and we can't risk it. So there's
Yeah,
definitely a
it could
lot
be.
of kind of marketing branding value that goes into these, and maybe they're
Mm.
new at that whole game.
Yeah, that could be. I heard an interesting. I was listening to a radio program the other day, and the guest actually, I thought he brought up kind of an interesting point that I didn't really think of until later on. I reflected on it, and then reading this story, it came full circle. What cyber criminals are now doing effectively is using artificial intelligence and obviously ChatGPT and other artificial intelligence engines to do some of the preliminary scouting. And what they do with it is actually identify companies, and they can kind of get the pain point, what they're willing to pay, what the threshold is based upon what the company's earnings, profitability, size, market sector. And it allows the cyber criminals now to hone in and really do advanced analysis on a company that they're going to target. And they could say, hey, instead of going for, $10 million for General Motors or something like that, a very large corporation. Let's pick some more mid-sized companies, mid-tier companies, target them, and feel out how much money we could extort out of them through a ransomware campaign or something else. And perhaps this was the case. Maybe these guys were identified in that here's what their threshold is. They can afford 150 to 200,000 US dollars, or one and a half two Bitcoins basically they could pay out. And they're now analyzing not just the amount of money they have and the business model and all that. Also, they can find out, because often this stuff is out there on the web one way or another. If you dig on a company, what their system is using, what operating system, how old it is, what are the vulnerabilities. So if they're very vulnerable and they're up there higher toward the scale, they'll be first targeted on the list to extort things. So it could be that just had weak cybersecurity implemented across this company or this group here in Swedish municipalities, and hence that's why they're targeted. So it wouldn't surprise me anymore, because cyber criminals are really using technology effectively to get in there and get out and get paid and move on to their next victim.
Yeah, and I don't think you're far off the target by kind of bringing AI into it, because when you think about it, what is AI? How do we build up these, whether it's large language models or just vast databases of information? It's done through training, and the more stories that we see like this, the more AI could potentially be trained to
Mm-hmm.
just automate this. They're going to say, well, we've got 1,000 instances of targeting mid-tier healthcare systems or companies, and X number paid X amount of dollars when we threatened them with this much, our threat level was set at X.
Yeah.
And so when you have enough of these patterns and enough of this data, you're literally training organized criminal artificial intelligence to say, you hackers, you guys you take a back seat. We're going to automate this entire campaign from the initially getting into the system and fooling it, whether it's through social engineering or brute force attacking or whatever it might be, to then once we extract the data or copy it and the breach has already occurred, to now moving into the ransomware component and almost the publicity facing side. Like, we're gonna announce to everyone, hey, we've done this, we've breached your systems, we want X amount of dollars, because we can confidently say that we had another company just like you last month that was willing to pay, and so now you're going to pay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. And I think as I reflect back on this story and the others, I think it really underscores for not just consumers, but small businesses, large businesses, to really focus in on cybersecurity. It's not just a buzzword anymore. It's really part of business. And we have to each individually, if we're running a business, analyze what our risk models are, how much pain can we take if we are a victim of a breach, and how much money do we put aside, how much do we insure, how much time and efforts do we put forth in training staff and educating and putting provisions in there to really keep safe from cyber criminals, because it's not a question anymore of if, it's just more of a question of when, because all business owners I talk to at one point or another have been victimized to different degrees. So it's really important for everybody just to think ahead. And what better way than basic education and implementing the things that are in your control that don't cost a lot? Because I often think about the cost to run a business. We all know it's not cheap anymore with taxes and crazy tariffs and economies, and every business is obviously different. But the things that are in your control, where you can control that kind of digital footprint within your business, I think you need to take a little bit of time and go through that, identify what you're protecting, what the value is, and getting the staff up to speed. I think when we wrote cybersecurity's everybody's business and putting a shameless plug in there. Um, it was interesting talking to different business owners, talking to people that I knew, and how many people really were not doing anything about cybersecurity. It was more talk, and they said, "Yeah, I want to do it. Yeah, I should do that." When I say, "Did you have a vulnerability assessment ever done?" No. What's that? Have you ever had a penetration test done? You know, you got X number of computers and a network system, and you've got an IT team, but most business owners still to this day have not done that. And we're not talking about tens of thousands of dollars. We're talking under $10,000 to do those type of things. So um, it's probably worth it once a year to go through some of those exercises and hire a third party independent of you to come in and do penetration testing. It's fresh on my mind. We were talking not too long ago. We're developing this product called the Wire Badger, and in fact, I did an interview on it the other week. That's going to be appearing soon on the news. Stay tuned to our feed there on BV Systems. But it's interesting. Most companies never even think about bad cables, USB cables that could be dropped in a company, plugged into your PC, either accidentally innocently by an employee or maliciously by somebody trying to break into your system. We're developing a tool that will actually allow you to instantly test, this is a good cable or a bad cable. And I think things like that are perfect for somebody that's offering services such as penetration testers, such as IT teams in the banking area and other areas like that. So I think stories like this really help you back up from it and say, what am I doing as, again, a business owner, as a company? What can I do more to keep things protected? My staff, my company, my brand, the whole gamut.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I want to point out too that I think it's always going to be about education first. We're always going to have solutions, technological and the like. But before the solutions can even come out, the first kind of firewall of protection has to be education on the business owner's part, on the consumer's part, and the healthcare worker's part, and all the other, jobs out there and roles that people play. Most people don't even know. I don't even think most people understand. Like you mentioned, the wire badger. Like when you say it detects bad cables, most people think like, oh, it's just my power cable that I charge my iPhone with. It's a bad cable. It must have gotten severed. It doesn't power it anymore. It doesn't, the data doesn't go through or something like that. No, we're talking. These things have microprocessors in them. These things have mini wireless access points buried in the actual cable. Looks identical to a regular harmless cable, but it has, it can inject malware, and it can get triggers from your Wi-Fi access point to then engage in bad behavior. So these are sophisticated bad cables that emit certain types of signatures that obviously we're picking up on, but your computer and your phone doesn't know any better, so you just plug it in and it thinks everything's fine. Meanwhile, you could be getting hacked or even worse.
Yeah.
So just wanted to remind everyone that it starts with education,
Mm.
and we have to keep upping our education game as well as our technological countermeasure game in this, cybersecurity battle.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was probably negligent in explaining what a bad cable is because most people, you're right, that I talk about bad cables to, they're like, "What are you talking about? Like, is it just intermittent or something?" No, no, these are cables, and they sell for right under $200 that hackers buy, and they load malicious content on their payload with, key loggers, remote key injection, remote account takeovers. You can do all kinds of scary things with these cables. They're readily available. It's technically not illegal to sell the actual cables. And independent of that, they post the payload so people can simply pull the payload off there, the malicious software, load it onto the cable, and it's got hardware on there. It's got Wi-Fi on there. It can act as a hotspot. So remotely, I could be out in my car. I drop a cable in the parking lot. Someone picks it up, plugs it innocently in their computer or to their phone. Now in the parking lot, I could hack in and start causing all kinds of mayhem. So they are a big threat, and I think maybe worse than something like juice jacking. We hear about that. I mean, that's terrible too. You go to an airport, you just need a quick charge before you hop on the plane. You innocently plug into a cable, not realizing that could have malware. It goes onto your laptop or your mobile phone, and it's dangerous. And they have simple dongles you could put on that accept the power only and not the data, so you can't be victimized and become a you know the victim of getting malware on it just by simply trying to get a quick charge. But most people don't do that. I see them every day at the airport, just plugging in the phone, jump on the airplane. They don't know the risks, end up wondering why is their bank account hacked or something else on their phone, or email compromised. And it's things like that. Just simply plugging in to a cable that's suspicious or potentially suspicious that has vulnerabilities, and you're done for. So I'm really excited about this product. I actually was working with the engineer yesterday and got a quick demo of it. And we're plugging a cable in on each end, and it will light up and say clean, and shows green and it's clean. And now we're going to be working on some of the alerts, and it's got voice enunciation. It'll say bad cable or good cable, and a whole bunch of other great things on there, to make it an exciting little product, I think. So lot coming forward. So stay tuned and keep an eye out on Berkeley Veritronics website for that.
Great. And speaking of Berkeley Veritronics, we mentioned the show we have coming up, the IAATI show in Hershey, Pennsylvania. We have any other shows coming up? I see
Yeah.
early November, there's the IAFCI. They're killing us with these acronyms here, but
Oh yeah.
I don't even know what that one stands for, but it's got to be something about International Association of
Financial.
what
It's financial crime.
financial.
Yeah.
That's it. The F is the
Yes.
giveaway. It's a financial leaning show, and so that's obviously going to deal with a lot of ATM attacks through skimmers and other various ways that they're attacked.
Yeah. The show that's coming up is they call it a SAPTA show, and I'm trying to get the acronym. SAPTA stands for Skimming and Payment Terminal Attack. So it's kind of a subset group of the financial crimes, International Financial Crimes Group, and we're an active member in that group, and we provide feedback to law enforcement to help them solve complicated financial crimes, in particular dealing with skimmers. That's our area of expertise, skimmers and now shimmers. So I'm going to be going out to Kentucky in November. We're going to have exhibiting, we're a sponsor, but I'm also presenting there. And I think that's going to be an exciting event. And it's going to be talking a lot more about that in the coming weeks. Some of the exciting tools and things that we're going to be doing there in the education, and learning a lot too. I think that's kind of the exciting part is you'll learn a fair amount about it. I'm just trying to find it here on the website, and I could pull it up in a second. Bear with me.
Yeah, sure. And while you're pulling that up, I just want to remind everyone that I'm the media director for the company, and I'm happy to say that we've finally gotten enough public, I don't know if you call it praise or endorsement or whatever, but we're working with so many law enforcement agencies now, local, state, federal, that have adopted our skim scan and skim swipe skimmer detector tools. And it's great to see because they post these stories and pose on with pictures of them holding up the instruments. They go out to ATMs, they go out to gas stations, and they demonstrate this stuff live. They're doing stuff that we can't even do. We might because we might not have access or the authorization to do it. They do because they're law enforcement agents, and it's great because I have so many of these stories now, so many of these videos and testimonials that I'm able to put together a montage of a video of videos of all of these police officers, sticking the skim scan in there and pulling it out and getting the green light and explaining what green versus red light means and all these things. So just want to shout out to all of them saying thank you. And we hope to, continue working with you, especially through shows like the SAPTA group and the IFCIA shows like that too.
Yeah. Yeah, if you could see that up on your screen there, that's the skimming and
Mhm.
payment terminal attack. Great lineup of speakers there. And I do too myself have the privilege of speaking this November 5th and 6th, and we're going to be in Lexington, Kentucky. And we're bringing our tools out, and we're going to be talking about some of the latest threats in skimming, but also shimming. We have a shimmer shield product, first of the kind in the world to detect shimmers. And that's what's inside your point of sale terminal. When we innocently stick in our credit card that's got a chip and pin on it. Well, the latest threat is cyber criminals have figured out how to steal the chip and pin. And I'm going to talk extensively about that versus tap to pay versus Google Wallet, Apple Pay, and of course our traditional magstripe skimmers. So kind of breaking that all down at this event here. So really looking forward to it. Last year we did it in Fort Worth. I presented to an excellent audience of, again, law enforcement, banking professionals, and excellent opportunity to have an exchange of information to really work together and fight against these cyber criminals. So looking forward to that.
Great. Yeah. And like we were saying before, the education again is critical.
Yeah.
You deal with the professionals usually. You're shaking hands with guys and girls who use this equipment, who understand the terminology. I'm more on the media side, and I can tell you. More people than not do not even know what a shimmer is. They think
Yeah.
they think a shimmer is a misspelling of skimmer. They don't understand the difference. They don't see a need for a different tool for a different type of skimming attack. So the education work is it's out there and we have to it's just part of the job.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's key, and I'm a big proponent of that. And you've been supportive. We put together a lot of not just blogs, but e-papers, white papers, videos, just educating our customer base. And sometimes it does not meet the business, and that's okay. But we're trying to make it safer for people out there. Hopefully, ultimately, the more we educate people, the more it will help us indirectly. Maybe it's buying tools or getting training or whatever else the case is. But I think it is important to share knowledge. Don't just keep it hidden and stingy, but share knowledge how we can all stay safer, and then we have a fighting chance.
That's it. And so like you were saying, the white papers and stuff, check those all out on bvsystems.com. And of course, our YouTube channel is blowing up. We're nearing 50,000 subscribers. That's great to
Yeah.
see. And I'm trying to posting probably a video per week I'm averaging. So
Wow.
that
That's
only
great.
helps to build the audience. And speaking of YouTube, this podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, Google, iHeart, Apple, Amazon, and more. And if you like what you hear, subscribe, review our podcast. For questions and comments, you could DM us direct on Twitter at ScottBVS. It's probably the best way to reach us on X, I should say, instead of Twitter. Or you could visit Scott's own website, www.scottschober.com, for more information there. If we read your comment or question on this podcast, we'll send you a signed copy of Hacked Again: Cybersecurity is Everyone's Business, or Senior Cyber. And thanks for listening, and tune in soon. Probably, let's say 1 to 2 weeks from now. Sometimes we're weekly, sometimes we're bi-monthly, or I think whatever it's called. But in the meantime, stay safe, everyone.
Yeah. Stay safe. Take care.